And as you would have seen on our News on the Hour, we have a new president of the Industrial Court, Heather Seal, who has been a member of the Industrial Court. This is not some sort of outside hire and potentially not a political appointment. Now, that's one of the good things about it. One of the bad things about it is the fact that the union leaders are kicking up. Well, it's relative to your perception, right? But they're upset about it, or they seem to be. They're kicking up a fuss about it. They're calling the way how this appointment was made unprecedented, which I am not aware of the entire history of TNT's appointment methodology with regards to how people have been appointed and disappointed, contracts renewed or not renewed, how their employment status or contract status has been communicated, etc., etc. So I don't know if it is completely unprecedented, but for the most part, I would say that it's not really a good look to basically tell someone 2 days before their contract is more or less running out, we're going to go in a different direction, and then, you know, immediately go in a different direction. And all I'll say about it now is, with no external context, just how it was communicated to the public, and maybe I missed something, a press conference or something. Maybe I missed the explanation. But given the fact that there are controversial cases apparently still before the Industrial Court, I think the Revenue Authority and what that means for the workers in Inland Revenue and Customs, is it Customs? There's that. The union leaders even brought up if this will be a similar situation with regards to previous matters started by one Air Caesar, that when she took a promotion from, I believe, magistrate to judge, they had to be restarted when they were taken up by another magistrate. And they're wondering about that. But let me just stick to the communication thing. Given the fact that there is the potential perception, because, well, and this is the thing, it's hard to not put in context into all of the analysis, because this is already an administration who has had a controversy with a president interfering with an independent body, the previous president. Now we have this president coming in, former president of the Senate, who one could argue she could say whatever she wants. It's very hard to convince anybody that is not die-hard PNM, and even then some will probably not believe her, that she is independent. Granted, the one thing, the one feather in her cap, maybe, was when she called on bipartisan crime talks, which it seems as though even her administration wasn't quite ready for that. Well, hell of a show that we got, which more or less I think is over at this point, right? It's dead. It's dead in the water, right? Now, there's that context. There's also the fact that, look, just in general, transparency is not well viewed. And this is something I said yesterday. Highlighted with this story as one of the 5 examples out of yesterday's news, just yesterday's news, where things like transparency and accountability just seems to be, you know, lost on the wayside several decades back. Because even if you don't have to, it would be beneficial if you came out with a good explanation to the public to, you know, head them off from the past before critics could point to this as another example of undermining the independence of certain institutions. Because the Industrial Court will have to rule on matters. The government is one of the biggest employers in the country. And the government will eventually, more often than not, be a defendant in the Industrial Court. Sometimes a plaintiff as well. Either way, there is a necessity for the Industrial Court to be seen as independent, but also to actually be independent. But the first part, in some ways, is just as important as the second. It doesn't matter how independent you actually are. If you're not perceived as independent, it's going to rob you of your credibility. It's going to undermine you in the position. It's going to make it more difficult for you to do your job, and that is to say the president and district court and the district court itself. And I do wonder now if, okay, on the show and outside these walls here, other people not on the show will, in their own time, talk about the problems we have. And I do wonder if, to some extent, we have an issue with foundational decay, rot, or non-existence. And I'll get more into that in a different topic. But needless to say, how this was done, I mean, the whole analogy of like a thief in the night, not exactly, but it does kind of make you feel that way, right? The previous president was away. She got a phone call, hey, we're going in a different direction. And then 2 days later or less, bam, new president in industrial court. Like I said, one of the few saving graces of this individual is the fact that it's not an outside hire. So at least we can't necessarily say that they handpick someone, you know, to lead the industrial court. I don't know what Ms. Seal's political affiliations are, her political stances are, or what have you. So, I mean, that's technically still up in the air. But what I do know is, at the end of the day, and I am no friend to the current union establishment and union leaders. I find most of them are bad at their jobs. I know the professor disagrees with me a lot because in some ways he is correct. And in other ways, I do believe that I am correct, that they're not looking out for the benefits of their members. They're just looking out for the benefits of the union. Those aren't the same thing. But in this case, there's too much precedent, bad precedent of bad behavior. There's too much context. There's too much doubt. It spills over into everything. And again, I do wonder if we have an issue with our foundations being bad. I'll save the rest of it for later. Let's move on to the next story here. And this is potential. I don't know if this is good or bad, to be honest. There's been a suspect who was arrested for the murders of Hollis Thomas and her 8-year-old son. He is reported to have known Thomas and to have previously, it is believed, attacked her, which means that potentially the reports that Hollis Thomas was not known to the police, her name is not on reports, well, I guess not as a suspect, sure, but it seems as though she attempted to report someone. Because in 2019, apparently, the suspect was charged and jailed for a year for assaulting Thomas and wounding her. And apparently she told the magistrate at the time there was an incident even before that where she claimed the police never took her report seriously. Now, to be fair, again, we're talking 5 years ago, right? So we got a suspect. It might be a personal issue. It's difficult to know exactly to what extent a human being, what kind of malice they could have in their heart, right? We might want to discount and say, nobody could be that evil or that bad mind or that whatever. Insert, adjective here, whatever. But at the end of the day, human beings are complex creatures and the possibilities are endless of how far we can go and how low we can sink. And in this case now, we do have to ask if this was a situation where, was it that her common-law husband was involved in something and this gentleman was involved in something? Was it a domestic? When I say involved, I mean criminal activity. Or was this purely domestic? Either way, I still come back to the point where, this guy, for all intents and purposes, executed a child. And depending on the situation, I myself now, I get my church's stance on the death penalty. But this is different. I don't think this is gangsters killing gangsters and, you know, they expect to die in the war. This is different. And this kind of thing, I suspect, I could be wrong, I have no scientific basis, right, to say this, but I suspect for these sorts of domestic things, not always, because murder-suicide is a thing, but there's a funny situation when you're punished with the death penalty. Not everybody could take it. It's one thing to be in despair and to do it yourself. It's another thing for you to have it inflicted on you. And one has to ask if he's willing to execute an 8-year-old child, whatever the reason, to what extent could someone like that truly be rehabilitated? And maybe that's our fault because our rehabilitation methods and practices and systems aren't good enough. Although I would hazard the question, is any system capable of rehabilitating an individual that did this? And since he is potentially a repeat offender, not necessarily a repeat murderer, oh no, but he has previous charges for attempted murder. I wanted to double check that. He has previous charges, not necessarily convictions, but he is potentially a repeat offender. And of course now, this is where advocates of the death penalty will say, reinstate the death penalty. It's not about reinstating. It's about the fact that our courts move so bloody slow that we can't actually get anything done. Once again, foundational rots. Because the basics, it's not the pie in the sky concepts that we're getting wrong. It's the basics in this that we're getting wrong. If we want the death penalty, the basic capacity to try criminals in a timely manner, we can't do. Foundations. Next story. This one just, you know, tickles the funny bone again. I literally just yesterday spoke about a situation with 2 Defense Force personnel who sued the state, and the judge agreed with some of their arguments, but I believe did not award them damages. I think they might have gotten costs, but did not award them damages because in their case there was no expectation for promotion, right? But the process was criticized by the judge. Well, another judge now has made a ruling on a different scenario, but the same similar situation. A WPC sued, well, the state, I believe, and was awarded $100,000 in compensation because she challenged that the Police Service Examination Board, she challenged the decision to rescind their previous decision of allowing her to sit an exam which she already sat. And they cited a standing order from one police commissioner, Hilton Guy, which I can't remember exactly how old that is, but yes, one commissioner, Hilton Guy, a standing order from him, saying that you needed to have 3 years probation before you could sit this exam. And essentially, the judge said, well, there were amendments passed in 2006 by Parliament and associated regulations, and for the most part, based on some of the regulations and amendments that existed after the standing order from a police commissioner who is what? 7 commissioners ago, 8 commissioners ago, I can't remember, right? The judge basically said, look, if Parliament wanted it to be so, they would have said so in the regulations in the same manner that it imposed a limit in a different instance. So the whole situation on how her promotion was managed You could take the exam. They told her, this is the thing, and this is the thing that gets citizens frustrated with the government in general. Because tell me if you have not heard this before. We tell you, yes, you could do the thing. You do the thing. Then somebody afterwards says, no, you were never supposed to be able to sit the exam, get the paperwork. You didn't actually get the approval. You didn't actually go through the process. You weren't supposed to be allowed to apply. Blah, 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 blah. This is after you do the thing. This is when you have technically done what it is you asked permission to do, got permission to do it, and then in hindsight, like, oh no, we made a mistake. Granted, I get it. If you wanted the standing order to stand, you know what would be beneficial? To know what you're doing and not give her permission before she takes the exam. But you don't apparently know what you're doing, and this is the Police Service Examinations Board. It's not hard. If it was so simple, we have a standing order, you can't do the exam until 3 years of probation. How technically hard is that? And the fact that now you're trying to enforce that upon someone by just saying, we made a mistake, so pressure for you. It's almost like if we are operating important functions of government, like if it's a fish market, you know? Well, oops, we were supposed to do that, so you can't have it that again. It's almost like if professionalism is just like gone out the window, or that concept does not exist in the workplace on certain important institutions of the state. It's almost like if the foundation of how we treat our promotions, our human resources management, the foundation of how we manage important institutions of the state, like the police service, it's almost as though those foundations don't exist. We think they're there. We have the facade of a properly functioning body. But from the Police Service Commission on down, it seems as though it's a joke. It's not the end of the world that has happened, but it's the end of the world that such a basic, fundamental mistake was made. And a judge had to say, no, give her $100,000. Maybe the board should pay out of pocket for that $100,000. No, they're agents of the state. The state does not hold its agents accountable, therefore the state has to pay. Therefore, we have to pay. You understand how this works? Some fool does something stupid. Nobody holds them into account. Eventually, they get in trouble for it. Somebody sues, gets a set of money. Money that's supposed to, at a time when, oh, we don't have enough money to finish all the construction for all the schools. More on that later. Oh, we don't have enough money to give out all of the allocations for local governments. Oh, we don't have enough money to give Tobago what it wants. Oh, we don't have enough money. We have to reduce the gas subsidy. Oh, we don't have enough money to pay our TNTT bills. TNTT needs to increase their rates. Oh, our water rates, our electricity rates are too low. We should increase those. Because we don't have enough money. And then money just goes out the door because fools can't hold other fools to account. But they could tell you who to blame besides them so they could win an election. Foundation, folks. Foundational rot. Next story. Actually, let's take a break. When we come back, I'll get into the next story. Stay tuned.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. And just for you this Christmas, come check us out for great gift ideas and all your Christmas decorations.
6 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch, Christmas Store at C3 San Fernando, and Eastgate Mall, Trin City.
Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Welcome back to Talking One. And the last story we have in the daily review, some good and some bad, I'll be honest. Now, the Minister of Education, she has made statements to say that the government is addressing issues, underperformance is how she put it, of the SEA exam, students in the SEA exam. I believe she made these comments in response in questions in the Senate. Now, and to be fair to the minister, kudos for her admitting that these concerns existed before the COVID-19 pandemic. I remember speaking to a primary school teacher, literally, I think it could have been weeks before COVID-19, so it might have been February 2020, somewhere around there, about some of the challenges that she faced in the education system in the last few years leading up to that point, where there were multitudes of changes to the syllabus, the workload increased to the point where she needed a permanent teaching assistant, and she taught me. And that school did not have teaching assistants. I don't know if back when I went in primary school, teaching assistants was even a thing in TNT. And the fact that the workload, even with the help, was so much more starkly different, in part because they had to keep up with the changes every year. It wasn't as though they could settle into a pattern. They didn't figure it out because there were new changes that they have to constantly update their curriculum. And To some extent, when you yourself are trying to get proficient with something, it makes it harder, right? You're not moving as efficiently as you could. That's one of the issues. But it did make me concerned because she's talking about an issue that could affect every teacher in every school. This is not, ooh, my school don't have water, or ooh, my school is near a crime hotspot. This is syllabus. Now, the SCA, the COVID-19 pandemic, what have we said on the show? It exposed the things. Issues with the health sector, issues with our health in general, the public society's health, right? Maybe issues with NCDs. It also, to some extent, exposed the school system. It definitely exposed teachers who didn't give two cahoots of teaching, right? Because not to say that all teachers are like this, but even within the same school, there was a difference noticeable by some parents who had children in different year groups because they had different teachers. And the differences were stark and to some extent extreme. But at a point in time where we have secondary school teachers, at the last big public consultations that the Ministry of Education had, basically saying, I have students in Form 1, they can't spell their own name. They can't write their own name. How do they get to that point? When we are supposed to have a 97% or higher literacy rate, when we spend so much money, not just on education, hell, we made tertiary education free up to some point. And in 2023, we have kids that can't even write their own name. Now, the minister, kudos again to her for pointing out that the issues start from further down the primary level, not just, and it's obvious, if you can't write your name, the problem will start at standard 5. She's pointing at standards 1 and 3. I wonder if, it's even before that with regards to early childhood education. But okay, let's go to standards 1 and 3. The primary school situation is more or less, because you can get away with certain aspects of preschool and infant classes and stuff not being up to scratch, right? To what extent do they need to know certain things, and to what extent you just need their minds developing, and knowledge could come as it comes. But standards 1 to 3, now things start to get a little critical, right? And if that foundation is weak, what happens? That's it. That's it for your educational prospects. Now already we have an issue because we had Judith DeVertile here from Paho Early Childhood Education Center. I don't know if I'm misquoting the name of the school, but anyway, the point is she was making the case that, look, childhood education can't be a one-size-fits-all system. And I do wonder to what extent we're still on that track and we're going to still keep making those mistakes, because as society gets even more and more sophisticated, the learning requirements of children become more and more sophisticated as well, because we have to take into account of all of the various new forms of inputs and media that they have access to. That changes the way how children develop, because no longer could we depend on the informal socialization of recess and after school play, etc., etc. Yes, there's some informal socialization, but now it might be, screen to screen. You're not actually seeing anybody. Face to screen, my screen to your screen, electronically. And it changes everything. And if the foundation is bad, and one could maybe even make the case, because I remember the call from Maraval. He said, and he's not the only place that I've heard this sentiment, that this generation might just be lost. This generation of late teens, young men in their early 20s. And to what extent now has our foundation of our education system more or less been rotten, not just now, not just a couple years before COVID, but maybe even 5, 10 years before COVID, because we're seeing the crime situation now, where young men have no hope, and maybe with young women, it's potentially starting to catch up. Now, young ladies are more adapted to the education system than young men are, but given the recent spate of school violence in girls' schools, we have to ask a lot of questions now on even that. But perhaps part of the reason why we have a crime public health concern is the fact that the foundations of our society, including primary school education, it's not just that they're bad now, they haven't been good for a while. And we're seeing the results. Are we going to do anything about it? I don't know. Because at the end of the day, foundational issues require serious leadership, not just lip service and not just somebody who's average. And we have a lot of people who are average or below average or worse than below average. And I feel confident enough to say that because look at the results. And I really don't care if you want to say, well, when my party was in power, we got blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. The foundation implies that it's an ongoing issue that has been more or less sucking the potential out of TNT for years and decades. But you know what? It's fine. Let's just vote in the same people next year or next year and a half and, you know, hope for a change. Until then, I don't know what else to say because the results are out. Is it that we just don't want to face the inconvenient truth? I don't know. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome a familiar face. Stay tuned.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Have a content capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you at the local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a content capital Christmas this year. Welcome back to Talking Point. And I was speaking about foundations, folks, foundational rot in our society. Now, with that said, I can't talk about foundations if I don't speak about the foundation of the show. And the guy who was with me from day one is with me here today, Mr. Keaton Shaw.
How did foundational rot and me coming...
No, foundation. The foundation of the show. You have to pay attention, Keaton. Don't be like a politician and only hear what you want to hear.
Why are you wearing my shirt?
I'm not wearing... Oh.
Oh. This was not planned. How are you, Sean?
Technically, I'm stripes. He's checkers. So there's a difference.
I guess.
I think I am reaching a new heightened level of, I don't know, frustration, delirium, despair.
You mean it could get worse than it already is?
It could get worse because now.
I mean, I too have been feeling that. In fact, I've been working on a new Christmas jingle, and I've only gotten 2 lines, so I'm still working on it. Would you like to hear it?
I'm gonna regret this. Go ahead.
'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. I can't afford ham, so I'm having bologna, fa la 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 la. Yeah, that's as far as I got.
Technically, that's 4 lines.
No, that's not 4 lines.
Okay.
The fa la 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 is part of the first line.
Oh. Excuse me. But I mean, ironically, with all that said on the show for the last several months, it's almost as though we've kind of half forgot about some of the basic things that people are going through, because there's so many big things that seems to be also flying on the radar. I'm not too sure if the common man is that concerned about what happened with, say, the industrial court or what's happening with the Integrity Commission. But I do find that there's just too many things. And now we're reaching the point where, look, we can't even have confidence that basic administrative functions within certain aspects of the public service could take place without some kind of nonsense going on, because they don't seem to know what they're doing. There's just no transparency at all. Everything is arbitrary by a whim. And this is what we got. So now we basically that's just saying, well, we hope that politicians have the right whims so that we don't, sink within the next 5 years.
So then essentially, what's new? Nothing's new. But I will agree with you on the instance that I don't necessarily think that the common man is very concerned with what's happening in the industrial court, what's happening with the Integrity Commission. I really don't think that they're too bothered about it. And the simple reason being is because I go back to the point that I've constantly made and repeated before. Everybody's concerned with their pocket. Things are extremely difficult. And, I've taken the opportunity, especially on weekends, to drive across TNT to see how things are. And I've noticed that the majority of the traffic, again, foot traffic or vehicular traffic, is mostly at grocery shopping centers or wholesale outlets. The retail industry, at least when it comes to certain goods, retail industry, when it comes to perishable items, that is actually, it seems to be fine. But have you even noticed the amount of homeless people across Trinidad and Tobago? It's growing. It's grown significantly. The amount of people that are outside of these institutions now, begging for handouts. The amount of people that are on the highway with posters, right? They've taken posters now, and a really begging for handouts.
Or what about the ones that, I'm not sure if it was you who pointed this out to me, or maybe my mother, because they drive a lot more frequently than I do. I hate driving, but it's not just beggars. They'll have the children. They'll have the children kind of begging, and then you'll see an adult maybe sitting in the shade or something, because they want to, hey, send the children. They'll be more receptive to the cries of a child, the pleas of a child.
No, well, I mean, I've said it before on this show. Yes, I've witnessed that. It's quite a common thing now. I've seen adults in the shades, in the sheltering. I've seen the children actually walking up and down trying to sell goods, or just begging. That's taking place as well. And it's very difficult. Now, at the same time, just bear in mind that's illegal. That's considered child labor, and yet nobody stops it. In fact, nobody cares to try and deal with the issue. But it's the thing is, you see, TNT for me, I absolutely love Trinidad and Tobago. I think Trinidad and Tobago is sweet, and there's a lot of sweetness still in this country, and a lot that we can do. But it's also very depressing at the same time when you see what is happening across Trinidad. We focused on politics a lot on this program, because really politics affects every sphere of life and every aspect of life. We've also focused a lot in regards, I mean, for almost 1 year, we focused a lot on COVID-19. And we focused a lot on the economy and all those things. All that comes up to politics. And maybe to a certain extent as well, the level of homelessness in this country is to do with politics as well. But you see, honestly, it's so heartbreaking and so depressing when you see all these people out on the street begging, looking for handouts. And may I say, a lot of them are elderly people as well. A lot of them are elderly people. I've heard instances where, this is a separate example, in the UK, during the winter period, you have elderly people who cannot afford to pay for their gas bills, all right? They can't afford to pay for heating, so they actually pass away in their homes because they freeze to death from the cold, from the bitterness of the winter. Come to Trinidad, where, generally speaking, if you compare TNT and our climate, and when I say our climate, I mean our financial climate, our environment, every aspect of Trinidad to countries outside, we tend to have it a lot cheaper. Let's understand that. But then when you take it in the context of the state of our affairs, it's becoming so difficult that you have elderly people now begging on the streets as well. And as I said, it's heartbreaking. And I don't think we're doing enough at all to address these issues. It's ever increasing, growing, and that is frustrating. Now, on the flip side, at the same time, whilst I'm expressing my frustration with that, I also have frustration with a number of young, able-bodied individuals who are begging. Why do I have an issue with that? Because people say there are no jobs out there, and it's very difficult to get a job. But at the same time, when you see foreigners coming to Trinidad and Tobago and doing manual labor and heavy labor and getting jobs, for example, on construction sites, I take a look at the Trinidad man who's on the street, young, able-bodied. There's nothing that seems to be physically wrong with them. In fact, there's nothing that even seems to be mentally off with them. But they're walking the street, they're begging, buy me a juice now. Hey, give me this now. Give me that now. Help me out now. And that at times frustrates me as well, because there are some individuals who have the ability to actually work. There's some individuals who actually have the ability to get a job. And they may not like the job because they say, oh, I don't want to go mix concrete in the hot sun, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. So they resort to begging. There's that aspect that we have to focus on as well, and we can't necessarily ignore. But you're seeing more and more of it happening here in TNT. And what is very, very eye-opening is that it's growing, but we're not addressing it. We tout about the cruise ship season here in Trinidad. The cruise ship season, there's always this big hoorah about it. You're entering Port of Spain, you're exiting Port of Spain, you see the cruise ship docking at the port. Guess what? You walk into Port of Spain. I'm talking about central Port of Spain. Just by Brian Laura Promenade, you walk by Independence Square. You walk around those areas and the number of homeless people, and there's some of them who are bare naked. And I don't know if that is an attraction for tourists. I can't see how that is an attraction for tourists. But when you have Port of Spain City Corporation setting up tents and this lovely fair along Brian Lara Promenade to welcome cruise ship visitors, but you have the number of people on the street, the number of homeless people on the streets, the number of people who've fallen to drugs, right? And the number of people who are just mentally off, and they're roaming the streets, they're living on the streets, they're defecating and urinating on the streets, they're running naked, and we're not addressing these issues, then quite clearly it's not just the lower class or the middle class of society we're feeling in Trinidad. We're feeling those who have completely fallen off. We're not helping a situation here at all, are we?
I have actually a funny explanation for the cruise ship phenomenon and why the homelessness situation might not be such a big deal to them. First of all, defecating on the street is nothing new to first world countries. Just look at San Francisco. So they have their own.
I don't care if it's nothing new.
I know, but what I'm saying is, it's not as shocking as we would think it would be to them. It's like, oh my gosh, we come to the third world country and people are defecating in the street. No. They have their own issues with homelessness and things like that. But the unfortunate thing is, to some extent, we go to the States, we go to, say, a big city like New York, a big city like Paris or London or whatever, to see something different. And it's kind of the reverse. And it's not just my opinion, I've heard this from others, where they are tourists, they come, they want to see the third world, they want to see all the grime and the dirt and the whatever. Now, maybe a naked homeless man
Funny
might
enough,
be
I've heard that as well,
too far, right? So, but I've heard this. And to some extent, it makes sense. They have what they have. They don't need to see a version of what they have. They want to see how other people live. So how other people live, it's not that they enjoy it. It's not that it's like a safari and they're like, ooh, look, a homeless man, and they take pictures and like they do take selfies with the homeless man. But it is something that is different, and on a technical level, it might be interesting.
No, I've heard that as well.
To see difference. It's how different people live in a different way.
I've heard that as well. And you're right, I've heard that from other quarters as well. Forgive me if I'm being ignorant here. I feel very strongly about it. So I hope my ignorance is not getting the better of me. I really don't care about what other countries face. Whether or not defecating is not new to them.
Fair enough.
Whether or not homeless, I really do not care about that. This is my country. This is where I live.
Well,
this is TNT. I want the best for TNT. Other countries could see about their affairs. And in instances where you're having diplomatic arguments about, not okay, I could see where other countries get involved. I don't care about that. The internal affairs and what's happening here in Trinidad and Tobago, that's what I'm concerned with.
Well, consider this. On a basic level, I think this is, again, COVID-19 exposed a lot of things. So we're experiencing a double whammy. Yes, we have global economic and food security issues, right? The language in the climate summit in COP28 is a clue to that. Because when people are poor, they don't want to hear about the environment. They need energy. When people are rich, then all of a sudden we could worry about these grand ideals, right? When we could afford it. So the fact that COP28 is not all the progress that the progressives would like to see, countries have their practical realities that they're still dealing with, that's one clue. So we have to face that, but there's a double whammy. COVID-19 exposed a lot of things, and I think one of the things that exposed is the foundational deficiencies of our society. And it's one thing to say that, oh, my education, my academic education was not good, and I don't have hope to get a big paying job and whatever. But when you're pointing out to the fact that people don't want to work these jobs that Venezuelans apparently are finding quite easily, not just Venezuelans, Guyanese, Jamaicans, immigrants from Africa, they're finding the jobs that Trinbagonians seemingly don't want and reject, right? We're too good for that, apparently. And I do wonder if it's not just the academic side of education, but the societal development, the education of values, of principles, of work ethic, of character.
No,
right? We're leaving young men and women to kind of form themselves more and more as life gets more hectic. And we can't blame them if they can't do a good job, because at the time they're children, they don't know any better. And it's not just that their professional prospects for their academics are lost, but they don't have any desire to pull themselves out of their situation like maybe their parents did or their grandparents did, or so on and so on.
So a couple of things I want to focus on. You mentioned family values or societal values.
But just values in general, personal values, personal...
the only thing that a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago value right now is essentially my status symbol. You know what I value? I value getting my hair done. I value wearing the biggest gold chain, having the best looking shoes. Don't mind that I'm living in a wooden house and it's falling apart. But I will have as much...
There's a direct TV dish on that wooden house.
There's a direct TV dish.
With a big screen.
And who's to say, listen, why not enjoy life? Okay, great, if you could afford it, fine. But then again, I keep seeing priorities. The values of long ago, such as simple little things, like being respectful, manners, it is a rare instance in Trinidad and Tobago now. I'm not painting a broad brush, I'm just saying it's a rare instance. The people, Sean, a long time ago, you're walking on the street, you pass one individual, they'll say good morning, you say good morning. That doesn't happen anymore. I've experienced it a couple of times where the individuals who do that are the elderly generations, right? They're the ones that still practice that. And there were a couple of times that very young children, I'm talking about innocent, I'm probably like 5 years or younger, actually expressed those as well. I felt, I can't tell you how overjoyed I was when a little girl is walking on the street, says good morning, the parent says nothing or does nothing, but the little girl says good morning. I says, you know, that's wonderful. Clearly, whoever it is, it's really bringing you up and helping you is doing well. But it's a rare thing. The other thing is, you know, you mentioned like COP28. Something popped in my head. I don't want to stray too much off topic, but it's something that popped in recently. I remember one caller from St. Anne's pointing out at BBC World Questions when it is Stuart Young said we're going to extract every single ounce of hydrocarbons, right? And the Prime Minister says TNT is going to remain in the hydrocarbon sector. And it thinks about diversification. If you drive along Chagonas and you're passing on the highway and you see the Ministry of Agriculture in this wonderful building, but there's no agricultural development anywhere. That whole stretch has now become malls. It's become a concrete jungle. There's no agricultural area. This big, grand Ministry of Agriculture, there's no agricultural development taking place. All that land, which is farmland, all that land, when Caroline farmers still can't get their land, all that land there is now becoming developed into concrete jungles. Nobody's against concrete jungles. But then something kind of clicked in my head. Do you know that there's a sugar shortage globally? Do you know why there is a sugar shortage globally? Supply is low, demand is high. The reason being is because there is this shift now towards biofuels. Sugar cane is being used in the production of biofuels. Don't you think that if TNT is looking to remain an energy economy, that is one area that we could look at as well? But hold on. The last point I wanted to make in regards to the first topic of homelessness and what is happening here in Trinidad and societal dysfunctions. I am seeing all the time that they're having ceremonies because we're now getting lights in these recreational grounds or parks across Trinidad and Tobago. I remember that Esmond Ford, who was the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, had this big hoorah about Orzenville Park. Orzenville Park. They had a ceremony for Orzenville Park and how they redid Orzenville Park. That's just one example. But there's always a hoorah across Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to these. You cannot go and enjoy these recreational parks. Families cannot go and enjoy these recreational grounds or recreational parks. Not just because of crime, you know, You have these green spaces, they're very much not maintained, and in instances where fortunately those recreational grounds are maintained, they're overrun with homeless people living in it. Living in it, they've set up it there in these recreational grounds. And again, Orsonville, Esmond Ford, and I'm not attacking Esmond Ford, I'm just using it as an example. He had this big hoorah about it. And they cleared the homeless people, it seems, for that one day, and then the homeless people went right back. So we're having a hoorah, but we're not solving the issue. People can't enjoy the grounds because you go inside that park, and not only is it a mess, but these homeless people are very aggressive because you are essentially stepping into their home. And they're aggressive. They don't want you there.
They're entitled to.
Exactly it. You know, so all those things you have to bear in mind.
I think because when you speak about things like this, right, this should not be a problem. But the key is, what is the solution to a problem like that? You station 4 police officers in the park, right? No, that's a band-aid. That doesn't solve the issue. And it goes back to why I'm thinking now a lot of these things are because our foundation is bad. And what we want is quick fix. And when we can't do a quick fix, it's almost like if in the politician's brain, they turn into a robot from a 1960s sci-fi show. Brr, brr, does not compute, and they don't know what to do. Now, because think about our economic situation and the implications of what you just said. Sugar is now in demand, supply is low relative to demand. One could argue climate change also pitches into that, but the demand is just higher because biofuels now and development of non-fossil fuels forms of energy. I don't know if that's necessarily green, maybe it's low carbon, maybe it's sustainable, but still carbon intensive. But the key point is, when the sugar industry collapsed, when the cocoa industry collapsed, what do? We moved on. When prices of fossil fuels collapse, what do? We stick to it. Despite the fact knowing that this is not something that's renewable. There is an end point where we will literally just run out. And it collapses. It's not like, oh my gosh, who would have known it collapses? At this point, we should know that every so often it's going to collapse. And we could probably even predict it based on trends on how economies go.
And this is why I keep saying that the short-term vision for the next election has
we can't solve these problems with short-term vision.
And the thing is that you mentioned the cocoa industry as well. At one point in time, TNT was, if not the main exporter, one of the main exporters of cocoa to the Cadbury's chocolate factory, right? And now, locally, cocoa farmers are facing great difficulty. The cocoa, Trinidad and Tobago's cocoa is revered around the world. Right? Local manufacturers and producers are struggling even with local chocolate. And climate change...
Most of it goes abroad.
Climate change is having a major effect on the industry as well. But the fact is, there has not been enough focus. And the ministry will argue with you. Ministry of Trade and Industry will argue with you. How could you say that? Look, we're opening a new factory. We have the cocoa development company that comes with you, and we're opening a new chocolate factory.
That's not focus.
And that to me that's not focus. That's just you basically trying to expand or break into the industry that's already collapsing. If it is that you want to expand or further into that industry, you cannot necessarily solve climate change, but you're not investing in the industry to expand in terms of production. And that is what I'm saying. If it is we have to solve these issues, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of brain power to realize, recognize, and understand this is an opportunity. What it takes is political will to say, we're going to invest in this industry. And I don't know if it's because the people who they want to benefit will not benefit if it is that we focus on these industries.
And that leads me to a point I've been making for the last couple of weeks. It's not that we have incompetent people in office. No, technically they have some degree of intelligence, right? Reginald Amor, for instance, has had a certain amount of success as a senior counsel. The Prime Minister, to some extent, is one of the leading volcanologists in the region, what have you, right? various members of parliament on both sides of the aisle have had success in the private sector. Not all, but various members. The problem is political will, and that goes back to what I'm saying. It's not incompetence, and it's not even bad mind, it's weakness. They are weak. They do not have the belly to make the tough decisions. Petroshan was closed down not because they wanted to do it, but because they felt they had to do it, right? And they didn't even do a good job at it, because we still have the consequences of how they implemented that closure, right? Even today, the refinery is just scrap iron at this point. Look at what they gave Nikwan a little bit of favor, and it seems as though Mr. Gill squandered that favor.
Listen, honestly, before we get overboard, I know that within recent times, people have been criticizing. We have to go to a break, but I know people have been criticizing the Prime Minister for his travels as well. And the thing is, I can't blame the Prime Minister. People say he just loves to travel, he loves to hop on a jet. Two, one, you have to expand into every single industry that you can. So when I hear opportunities for Caribbean Airlines and the Middle East, and I myself, I'm being honest with you, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there, how that's working, if it was just a statement that you made to raise some levels of hope.
Well, at the end of the day, he's really traveling for oil and gas.
Yeah, I know.
And we can't totally fault him for that either, to be fair.
I know, and this is what I'm saying. When people are getting upset and angry at the Prime Minister traveling, I can't blame the Prime Minister. I don't know what they're getting angry for. Nobody wants to stay in Trinidad. Look, the Prime Minister's traveling every opportunity he gets. He wants to get into TNT as well. Let's take a break on the program. No, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue and we'll open up the phone lines.
Okay.
Comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. And just for you this Christmas, come check us out for great gift ideas and all your Christmas decorations.
6 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch, Christmas Store at C3 San Fernando, and Eastgate Mall, Trin City.
Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Mr. Shah, not Mr. Singh, Mr. Shah, he's still with me here. We're going to open the phone lines now. We want to hear from you, the viewer. Are we making sense? Is there anything else that we did not speak about that you wanted us to speak about, or you want to mention your opinion about yourself? Call in and have your say. And please, 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 do not wait until the 11th hour. I think I've forgotten to say that over time as people started calling in earlier, but now I need to say it again. Don't wait until the end of the show when we're running out of time. Call in. And we have one of the culprits himself who was only calling at the end. We don't have him? Oh gosh, Master Control fooled me. All right, Mr. Petit Valley, call in earlier. Don't call in later. You're going to get stuck again. I even actually, Keaton, I actually Christmas shopping, I ran into one of our callers. Same thing happened to him. He can't get through, I'm like, there's time at the top of the segment to call in. And we have Tuna Puna, so the time is the window's closing. But Tuna Puna now. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Yes. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I've been looking at this interesting debate, with respect to politicians and their response or non-response to issues. And, what I think you fail to recognize is this, that if there are no consequences to actions or inaction.
Just go on, caller, I'm listening. Hello?
I do wonder if there's a conspiracy theory I could say here.
Oh, hold on, caller. You're going to have to start over from consequences. We lost you there for quite a bit.
No, we started the caller.
All right, caller from
no.
Tunapuna. I'm not sure what happened there. Tunapuna, call back so you can make your point. Good morning, caller from Arima. Good morning.
Season's greetings.
And to you too, sir.
Now, everything you all discussed there this morning are simply symptoms that these people don't understand what economic development is about. So, education, children are learning ambition, they're learning character, they're learning dignity. And it's free meals. You try your best that they don't really learn responsibility. So as they get older now, it manifests. They rather walk body road and beg. They find some jobs too menial to do.
Yeah.
But the outsiders will come in and do the jobs and live comfortably. For me, we waste too much time on the things that don't matter. And we waste good money on it too, and that is what's killing this country.
Quite possibly, caller.
Take, for example, electricity. Barbados have people with solar panels on the house and they're generating their own electricity because they can't afford to buy the gas. So why is it Trinidad can't do that?
A very good point. An excellent point.
In education, you have to let children understand that academics is not all. Because if you look at it today, the musicians, the sportsmen, and the artisans are the ones who are making more money than the academics. Look at cricket, football. Look at people forming their own little companies, all off our trade. And this is where the government is supposed to position us. So, Keaton, I would blame the Prime Minister because he educated, yes, because he's certified. But where leadership is concerned,
I hear you,
we're supposed to have at least 5 boats going to Tobago, 3 passenger and 2 ferry that Trinidad and Tobago own. We ain't supposed to be renting nothing from nobody. But we sell with Panorama. Gentlemen, have a good day.
You too, caller. You too, caller. You too. Very,
the
very
lack of
good points.
is It's a big point there.
Good call. Good morning, caller from Tunapuna.
Hello, good morning. Caller from Tunapuna.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wonder if you all can give us an update at the status of the former PNM Attorney General Alwari and Vincent Nelson, the indemnity deal that they had made. What is the status of that? I never hear you all speak about that. I would really like to hear what is the status of that indemnity deal that Alwari and Vincent Nelson had.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. We'll try and bring you an update or expand into a conversation perhaps tomorrow on talking points, if I am here tomorrow.
Okay. I hate to say this. I hate to say this because I lament the fact that things get lost in the news cycle. And I'll be honest, there's so many bad things that this is just one more bad thing, important thing that got lost in the news cycle. Listen, the crime talks. Don't hold your breath. It's going to be lost in the news cycle. We're going to forget all about it just now. The Commission of Inquiry for Paria, it only came up because the report was finally finished, and then we're going to forget about it again. So it's a good and important point that you brought up.
What do you mean the crime talks are going to get lost? Crime talks are lost.
I know they're lost, but no, with regards to the pub, well, you're right, exactly. There you go. They're already lost, yeah.
Good morning, caller from St. Anne's. Good morning.
Hey, morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I want to touch on a couple of things you all brought up this morning in your talk. One of the things concerned the homeless in Port of Spain, well, particularly in Port of Spain. I've noticed it myself that on journeys into downtown Port of Spain, midday-ish, I tend to see a swarm of particularly elderly people, and particularly elderly female people, congregating around or near the statue of Cipriani. And I suspect it has something to do with those people who feed the homeless. I suspect they do tend to congregate around that time of day to take advantage of the free meal. I don't know if that's a good thing, I don't know if it's a bad thing. I do notice the ages of the people, and they are quite aged. And despite your discussions of tapping into how much of an eyesore it is, the one thing you didn't discuss was what is causing this apparent epidemic of homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, there are three main causes for it. It's drug use, mental health challenges, and perhaps errant teenagers or young people who are running away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a fourth issue may be the cost of living, that people simply cannot afford to rent. They cannot afford to stay in their homes or even get a home. And that's a challenge for the state as we get further and further away from being an independent nation with the means to sustain our livelihoods. That's the first thing. The second thing concerns jobs for locals. Now, this is not an unusual phenomenon that's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. When our citizens go abroad to first world countries, the US, the UK, we find ourselves doing exactly what the Venezuelans are doing here, which is they find it as a means of survival. There is a question you didn't address in that subject, in that what are the wages and what are the protections being offered to these workers, whether they be Venezuelans or Trinidadians. I do not know if the wages that are being paid to Venezuelans, Trinidadians, barring issues of laziness, barring issues of not wanting to work, can survive on. And that's a consideration that tends to be left out of the conversation when we're talking about the issues of jobs being available for Venezuelans, and apparently not for Trinidadians, or Trinidadians not being interested in taking up those jobs. There may be very sound reasons why they don't. On another matter, the public service, and this is my final point, I know there's a tendency in the general public and the media as a whole to downplay the significance of the public service in this country, but I will tell you something. The public officers are the ones who hold up this country in large measure, despite the criticisms, and they are significant, and they are relevant, and they're often true. During that tie that happened nearly 2 decades ago, it was the public officers who kept this country going, who kept those checks being printed for salaried workers, for the people who are beneficiaries of the social dependency state. Those are the ones who kept this country running, and I think there's a tendency to undervalue what they do. Yes, there are the problem areas. We all know of them. When you go to certain public areas like licensing, for example, we all hear the attitudes, we all hear the responses. But public officers, do a profound measure of service to this country, and I do not think, by and large, they are paid their value comparable to what it is they do. And without them, this country, faster than the politicians would wish, would think, it would fall apart. And I just wanted to put my 2 cents in regards to that matter. There was one other matter I wanted to bring up, but I don't want to overtake my time, so I'll let you go.
All right, Caller, thank you very much for your contribution. You've touched on a number of points there in regards to the homelessness. I did mention mental health and drug use. I didn't expand too much into that conversation, but it's a very good point. You've also mentioned in regards to the jobs. We've discussed it before on Talking Points, and in all fairness, we didn't necessarily raise it this morning in regards to the possibility that the Venezuelans, and I think there is a high possibility, I've heard, where they're not necessarily getting paid.
But I want to say,
according to the law.
I want to say, even before we had this great wave of migration in the last couple of years, so I'm talking 10 years ago, I've seen anecdotal examples of jobs that was abandoned by Trinbagonians and taken up by migrants. But then these are jobs that were good enough for Trinbagonians to actually come back to try to get. So the wage wasn't the issue. It was potentially the type of work, and they thought they were better than that.
I also think you have to understand, Caller, that even though you said trees might not be able to survive on it, Venezuelan migrants are finding ways to survive on it. And I know that you may be saying, well, listen, you have 2 or 3 people living in a house with their children and all that. Those 2 or 3 people are able to pull their money together to pay rent and still pay groceries. So they're finding ways, and I think Trinidadians also need to be smart. But I hear the point. I'm not disregarding it.
No, there's some truth there. Yeah. But I would just like to, because I know of examples where that's not, there's the other side where it is, we just don't want to do those jobs.
Respond to your last point after this call from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. Caller from San Fernando, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Sean. Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sean, a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to bring up something with Karen, but I have not found the opportunity, so let me try and bring it up with you guys this morning. It is about the NLCB. You remember I said I call the NLCB the biggest casino in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, I remember you saying something very effective.
The NLCB has upped their responsibility for transparency. In the last 2 years, the NLCB has not had an active website. It has been under construction for the last 2 years.
Digital transformation.
And as an entity that is a revenue owner for the state, there needs to be more transparency there. It took me, I am in the process of writing the NLCB a letter. It took me, Sean and Keaton, over 6 months of calling the NLCB every week before I could get an email address, and I only got that email address last week.
Wow.
For them to give me an email address. It was about them. It's a big defense and trying to find out why it is I want an email address to speak to somebody in the public relations department. It is so ridiculous. And because there are so many issues that I have with the transparency of a lot of those games that they're putting out to the public, which I'm going to expand on. But after I write the letter and based on my response, I will come back to you all and let you all know what happened. But suffice it to say, you cannot have an entity like that for 2 years. If you type it up on your computer now, Sean, and you go nlcb.co.tt,
I did.
You will see what it says.
It's nothing. It's just past results.
Under construction, where you can't reach them right now. That has been going on for 2 years.
Yeah, all right, cool.
And I just want the public to have an idea of, and you have to understand where these state entities are not being governed properly because they have a board. So have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, caller. Please call in and let us know if you get a response from the NLCB, because you said go on the website. I have Googled on my computer right now, National Lotteries Control Board. There are a number of websites that come up. NLCBplaywayLotto.com clearly is in the official website. Then you've got NLCBgames.com. Again, all it has is results. NLCBLotto.com. So, Cole, I understand where you're coming from. No accountability, no transparency. In fact, all these state entities, when you go on their website, you're supposed to see who's the chairman of the board,
right,
and who's the board members. And
ironically, the ones that I have looked up, I have gotten that information, but one would think something as old as lotteries, NLCB.
And apart from
they
that,
should have all of this ducks in a row.
I want to, before I respond to you for the caller from San Fernando, the caller from St. Anne's who made the point about public servants. You're right, they face a lot of criticisms. I get the point that you're making. You're saying that there's not necessarily the value for public servants as there should be because they prop up society. Caller, good point. Except, I don't think a lot of public servants, it's very rare that you find a public servant who value their responsibilities, who value their job, who value their position. So as you're making the point that there's criticisms because they prop up society and we don't necessarily value them as we should, I don't think they value themselves or the power that they have or the contribution they make to society. I don't think they value their responsibilities. And if they can't do that, then people obviously would not be happy with the job that they're doing. Well, as it relates to NLCB, I think the line that I've heard recent times, I think the line that I heard was, somebody wanted $20 million so you could be guaranteed that back pay is coming.
Oh, God. So the thing with public servants, and I say this all the time, they are the few, the proud, the ones that keep the thing going, especially with regards to the police and various arms of the bureaucracy that kind of keep the system together with seemingly string and duct tape, right? But I agree with Keaton. I think they're under criticism because there are too many examples of bad apples. Because they deal with the public, and the public will experience them. It's all anecdotal, but the amount, the sheer scope of the amount of bad examples is too much. The sheer scope of the lack of accountability is too much. And Mr. San Fernando's example there, to me, what went through my mind is, this is one worker wanting to be lazy. What you need that for? You don't need that. It's like, who are you to ask a citizen, what do you need a contact email for in order to send a message? You don't even know what the message is going to be.
No, but that caller from San Fernando, that's very frustrating that you receive a response. I admire your persistence. I admire the fact that you just continued pushing to get this information for months. That really is commendable. Because a lot of people after a week or 2 weeks just give up and you've pushed. I hope it gets through. I'd love to hear the response.
But Keaton, you want to say public servants are not valued? Why is it so many people want jobs in the public service? Why? Why is the public service job so much in demand? Because the work is too hard. In theory, the work is too hard and they're not valued enough. But somehow, the actual perception is the pay is good or I don't have to do nothing.
You see, the thing is, that is the perception, security.
Not just security.
Hold on. Here's a big part of it post-COVID as well. During the COVID-19 pandemic, public servants still receive their full salaries while at home.
Whether they worked or not.
Whether they worked or not. In the private sector, not only was there people losing their jobs and businesses closing down, but people who were able to keep their jobs, their salaries were slashed. And it's still up to this day, almost 2 years later, when things have picked back up, and they have, people still can't get their full salaries. People are still working on slash salaries from COVID-19.
You could be a senior teacher in a private school, and from what I understand, you are paid less than public school teachers. But heaven forbid the public school teachers need a raise. They need a raise.
No,
but somehow the private school teachers are making it work.
No, but okay, Sean.
I just bring that up.
No, I know.
Because it's a direct comparison.
But understand that in instances we have to add context, right? I know the comparison that you're trying to make, but we have to add context, and there are a lot of elements to what you just said. But apart from that, whilst I understand the point that you're trying to make, I think I've always had this understanding that a lot of people who I've encountered in the public service cannot survive in the private sector. They can't survive. Whether it be the lazy attitude or the mindset, they might not even last the entirety of their probation period. And that is just, that's what you have. So caller from St. Anne's, I respect your point, but you probably have to expand a bit further into what you mean for me to fully understand where
Yeah,
you're
because
coming
I'll go a step further. I think at the end of the day, if the workers at the supermarket don't do their job, we can't get food. If the workers at the telecom companies don't do their job, we're disconnected. And heavens forbid, in 2023, that's like a death sentence for some people, right? So the importance, police is a different level of importance to our society, right? But to say that the private sector jobs, they don't have to work hard. No, I would hazard a guess, on average, private sector workers have to work harder than public sector workers. And Keaton just basically spelled out why. So not to be aggressive with our disagreements of you, caller from San Fernando, St. Anne's, because I believe you're right though. We underestimate the work done by those that keep the system together with duct tape and string.
I could tell you from experience, whether it be working at WSN Content Capital, which is obviously in the private sector, but my previous job where I was before was in the private sector. It was working for one of the big four, as they refer to as them. If you're not so sure what it is, I'm not going to call all the details, but you could Google the big four, and you'll see. I was working in one of them, and people have this idea that these companies make a lot of money. And you're right, they do make a lot of money. But I was making just above minimum wage. And I had to work 7 days a week. 7 days a week. In fact, out of the day, I was probably getting 4 hours of sleep. And this is in the private sector, of course. And I was getting paid just above minimum, but I had to do it. This was my job. And the point is, a lot of public servants don't even work between 8 to 4 as they should. Because sometimes lunches be 2.5 hours, or they have 2 or 3 lunches in a day. And again, not painting a broad brush, but this is just my experiences. So it's not that I'm trying to be disrespectful to all public servants. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or unkind. But until I experience different or I see different, it's going to be very, very hard to persuade me otherwise.
And it's the same thing for small business owners. When you have to run a business, then you understand the work gets even more, right? And my brother doesn't get certain holidays. Public holidays maybe, because he can't do certain work functions during public holidays. But holiday periods, August vacation, Christmas vacation, Easter vacation, that's when he's working, right? Because that's the job. And I think more people going into the public sector needs to understand your job is to carry out certain functions to ensure that the country could operate. It's not some heroic sacrifice. This is not targeted at Mr. St. Anne's. This is actually directed to my frustrations at some in the public sector who don't seem to understand that level of responsibility that I believe the caller from Arima pointed out. And that's why I think, just to wrap things up, when you could have somebody from NLCB questioning why you even need an email for, right? When you have how many cabinet ministers we don't actually see do anything, right? Foundational decay, my boy. Telling ya.
Well, as we wrap things up, have a Content Capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year.
Hey, that sounds familiar. You sang that?
Now I know we have no snow. Sean, bring some cheer.
We'll be on tomorrow morning.
Ho, ho, the Christmas shows. They're for all to see.
Make it a Content Capital Christmas Day, everybody.
Movie classics,
as my co-host is
wait
now
for
singing.
You, and our local content for free.
We'll see you.
Today is a good day. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Have a Content Capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you and the local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a content capital Christmas this year.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
It's Christmas time, and with your family you'll spend every evening watching a movie on WESN. The classics that fill your heart with merriment and cheer as we celebrate together the most wonderful time of the year.
This is my island in December.
This Christmas, WESN celebrates with you as the Content Capital brings the big screen classics. Gather your family and tune in to WESN from December 1st to 31st at 8 p.m. nightly for We Christmas Movie Classics.
Santa's coming to town. Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him. I know him.
Only on WESN, Content Capital.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
That actually began almost 3 months ago. It began sometime in September, and even already during these 3 months, they have called in experts, called in witnesses, and so far, while they have brought some type of evidence that Hunter Biden did try to use his name or promise access to Joe Biden, to some of his business partners. None of these experts and witnesses and the Republicans have been able, so far at least, to bring evidence that Joe Biden actually benefited financially from these business dealings, or that he took himself any action that would benefit his son's business dealings. So far, there's not much evidence, but the Republicans are hoping that they can show that after this inquiry.
Ketivan Gurjistani for us there. Now, America's famed Ivy League universities have found themselves increasingly embroiled in controversy since the October 7th attacks on Israel. At issue, support for the Palestinian cause, free speech, and anti-Semitism. Our focus report today takes us to Harvard, whose president came under intense pressure earlier to resign after comments she made last week at a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. But Claudine Gay has received the backing now of the university's governing body And Fanny Allard and Fraser Jackson have this story for us from Harvard.
Harvard is arguably the world's best known and most prestigious university. This institution, which shapes the American elite, has become a flashpoint in the US reaction to the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Israeli violence has deprived Palestinians the dignity of burying their dead.
This is a member of the Palestine Support Committee, the first student group to issue a statement after October 7th. It was contentious, notably because it accused Israel of being entirely responsible for the Hamas attack, without a word for the Israeli victims.
It was just intended to contextualize the situation within 75 years of occupation, within decades of siege, within apartheid, within settler colonialism, within ethnic cleansing. And I think it was supposed to warn of the coming violence that we would surely see in weeks to follow.
So why not condemn Hamas?
Harvard refuses to call a genocide a genocide.
We put that question to this student, who refused to answer.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. There has absolutely been a double standard in how mainstream media approaches this. We need to recognize the Zionist regime for what it is, and that is a settler colonial regime that seeks to wipe the historic land of Palestine clean of any Palestinians in order to create their own land that excludes and eliminates other people.
That discourse, often heard by Palestinian activists, however, is deemed extreme by the majority of Israeli students at Harvard. Maya and Shani are originally from Tel Aviv and were active with the Israeli left against Benjamin Netanyahu's government.
What got us here and how can we change course for the future?
But since October 7th, they have been stigmatized for their nationality and feel completely isolated. Shani has even resigned from her student union.
The union, ever since October 7th, we issued multiple statements condemning the actions of Israel and the war in Gaza, with no mention of October 7th and what Hamas did, as if Israel is just started attacking in Gaza for no reason. The union refused to discuss adding anti-Semitism to one of the things they condemn, together with Islamophobia and racism. People that think they're on the left but think that extending solidarities to Israelis would somehow take away from support of solidarity on Palestinians. At this point, they stopped being on the left.
Harvard waited 4 days before issuing a clear statement condemning the October 7th attack, a silence that Maya considers demagogic and dangerous.
Trying to not upset anyone many times is the wrong strategy, because you end up upsetting everyone. If we're unable here to have an honest conversation with academic integrity, rooted in facts, a conversation that could be very difficult for me as an Israeli to hear. And part of the reason I came here, I'm up for that. I want to be challenged, I want to think critically. I hope I'll change my views on a number of issues, but that's not the conversation we're having.
Since October 7th, anti-Semitic incidents have increased by 400% in the United States, including at Harvard. Jacob Miller is president of the Hillel Campus Group, the largest Jewish university organization in the United States. He's worried by the current climate.
There have been many posts that have been deeply anti-Semitic on Instagram and on this anonymous social media app called SideChat. In order to sign in, you have to use a Harvard email. So I know that everyone who's posting on it is a Harvard affiliate, but I don't know exactly who it is. So there was this one post that said, "Now I fully understand how Jews control the media." There was another post right after October 7th that said, "Let them cook." It's a very strange experience to then be expected to kind of go back to campus and to classes and to clubs with these people who've posted these things unapologetically.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is almost unique in the deep rift it creates amongst people internationally. But at Harvard and the wider US, it has become a matter of domestic politics.
People have this idea of oppressed people just struggling and that that's all the same kind of phenomenon, or, people of color, resisting kind of white colonizers when, most Israelis aren't white. It's hard to really say that they're colonizers because Jewish people had a connection to the land prior to that, and so the parallel doesn't fit so well.
Faced with criticism and pressure from its donors, Harvard has finally created a committee to combat anti-Semitism, but no group to combat Islamophobia, which is also on the rise. A few weeks ago, this truck circled the campus with the faces and names of pro-Palestinian students to denounce their activism. But that hasn't stopped them from organising daily events in the university grounds, such as this installation depicting life in Gaza.
You have home, you have school, you have hospital, and what it does is it tries to show you that Palestinians, the people being killed every single day in Gaza, are normal people.
Fawaz Malki studies history at Harvard. He's American, born of Palestinian parents, and therefore directly affected by the war in Gaza. He too feels abandoned by the university.
Anti-Palestinian racism, Islamophobia is not being confronted at this university in the manner that it should be. There's plenty of students who wear hijabs, who have, had their hijab pulled. They've been spat at. People who wear keffiyehs, a Palestinian cultural scarf, a symbol that stands for Palestinian liberation, who've been told there's no justification for terrorism. And it's heartbreaking because those are things that our grandparents wore, their grandparents wore, long before any sort of terrorist group that you want to blame ever existed.
Harvard and several other universities are now under federal investigation for anti-Semitism and Islamophobia under the Civil Rights Act. The Act prohibits discrimination based on race, colour or origin at any institution receiving funding from the US Department of Education.
Fraser Jackson reporting for us there from the University of Harvard. Now it's time for some culture on the programme, because her film Barbie was already this year's biggest box office hit worldwide, and now Greta Gerwig has been named the president of the jury at next year's Cannes Film Festival. To tell us a bit more, Eve Jackson from our culture desk is with me. Eve, over to you.
What a year for Greta Gerwig. And with Barbie, the success story of 2023, she has become the first female director in history to make more than $1 million at the box office. It's also got 9 nominations for Golden Globes. And so there's a lot of excitement about Greta Gerwig being the head of the jury at Cannes next year, which will take place in May. She'll be the first female American director to do so. And the Cannes Film Festival said in their announcement, Greta Gerwig is a heroine of modern times.
It is certainly true, isn't it? In, just over a decade, she's had something of a meteoric rise, hasn't she?
She certainly has. Not so long ago, she was the muse of independent US cinema, acting in films like Frances Ha and Maggie's Plan. She's also made some independent films, like she wrote and directed the coming-of-age film Lady Bird, that was back in 2017, and Little Women in 2019, which was shown at Cannes. Both of those films earned Oscar nominations. Barbie, of course, is tipped for some big prizes. The nominations for the Oscars aren't out yet. That will be in January. Let's hear now from Greta Gerwig talking about that box office Barbie success story that stars Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling.
I mean, a lot of it really was like going back to my memory of Barbie and playing with Barbie, and I got a lot of hand-me-down Barbies from other girls, so they were pretty pre-loved. Already they had their haircut and everything, and I think I just tried to dial down on what it felt like to be a kid.
We haven't played with Barbie since we were like 5 years old. Oh.
No one rests until this doll is back in a box.
Even if nobody else sings along.
Humans only have one ending.
Get that Barbie!
Ideas live forever.
So Greta Gerwig said that for her, Cannes is the pinnacle of what the universal language of films can represent. The last woman to head the jury was in 2018. That was the actress Cate Blanchett. And the 77th Cannes Film Festival will kick off in May.
Congratulations to Greta Gerwig. Quite a rise, as you say. Next, tell us about arguably the most famous contemporary African painter of his generation.
Well, the colourful and committed paintings of the Congolese artist Sherry Samba are on show in Paris at the Mayol Museum. You can go and see his work until April. Now, more than 40 years of his career are brought together in these 50 works, which are on display. Our culture editor on our French channel, Louise Dupont, went to meet him.
I didn't choose to become a painter. When I was a child, I couldn't stop myself from doodling on bits of paper or even on the floor. It's who I was. I didn't have a choice. I like things that catch your eye. not just having lots of bright colours, but when I opened my own atelier, I decided to put in place my idea of incorporating a comic book aspect to my works. I put speech bubbles, despite certain critics saying, no, you shouldn't have writings on paintings. I particularly love painting. I love drawing on a daily basis. At one point in my life, I called myself a journalist painter. I like calling things out. I like challenging people's moral compass, because I paint not just for the sake of painting, it's mainly to challenge people and their beliefs.
That's a look then at the new exhibition by Cherry Samba here in Paris. Eve Jackson, thanks very much for coming in to tell us a bit about that, and Greta Gerwig as well. Well, that's it for this hour of the programme. Thanks for watching, and do stay with us.
They observe. They contact us. They report, film, photograph. They are the voice of the voiceless. Your eyes in the far-flung reaches of the world. The Observers, a network of 5,000 committed citizens working with France 24.
One of our observers in Côte d'Ivoire, Gaspar.
Amateur footage and testimonials checked by our journalists and broadcast weekly. On The Observers, on France 24 and observers.france24.com.
Paris is well known for its often spectacular light displays, but it's not just during the festive months that it glistens. In fact, in Paris there are hundreds of illuminated sites, including monuments, statues, churches and bridges. Let's take a look at Paris's love affair with light.
France in Focus on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Paris, WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Magistrate levies fine